12 win.
An historic night under the Friday night lights of LaVell Edwards Stadium. BYU victorious over Cincinnati 35-27 to pick up its first ever Big 12 win. The Cougars were outgained by more than 200 yards. When you match them up against Cincinnati.
In this one, man. Jeez.
The Cougars had 2 passing yards with under a minute to play in the first half and had a halftime lead, a lead that they would never relinquish. Jarom, how in the world did BYU win this game? Because you look at the statistics, they had no business coming out victorious, but they did. And it was until a late garbage touchdown of sorts, it was 35-20. How'd they do it?
3 reasons really stick out. And one of them is the reason BYU lost last week. It is takeaways that lead to points. At Kansas, that cost BYU the game. And in this game, it got BYU the win. The pick 6 gives BYU the lead. The fumble on the punt return by Cincinnati, recovered by Austin Riggs at the 15, leads to a touchdown. More on that later. Those 2 plays were huge in this game. Because in the end, you know, it's a 1-score game in the end, and BYU prevails because of those 2. Another thing, reason number 2, explosive plays. 9 yards per passing attempt is a good number. 6 pass plays of 15+. BYU did have 3 rush plays of 10+. We saw like a semblance of a run game, which is exciting. The numbers weren't big for BYU in the end rushing.
Let's throw out the minus 24 yards or whatever it was on the snap over the head.
Yeah, that was not good. But L.J. Martin, 16 for 66, 2 touchdowns, 4.1 yards per carry.
Yep.
I will take it.
Yep.
Miles Davis, if, you know, he gets it done. 4 carries, 17 yards, had the 11-yard run. That was good. And then reason number 3, 4th down stops. BYU gets 2 4th down stops in those games. Those are like takeaways.
Yes, I think they should count.
They're like getting a fumble recovery. They really are. Jay Hill's defense now has allowed 2 for 7 on 4th down this year.
Awesome.
BYU's really, really good on 4th down. So those 3 reasons really stick out for BYU, despite being out-yarded, out-possessed in terms of time possession, which was nuts. It was basically 10 minutes. And then the yardage is crazy. It's nuts. The plays plus 31. I don't recall a game ever in watching BYU where they were minus 31 in total plays. BYU has proven that it has not gotten 400 yards in a game yet. Yet BYU is 4-1, which is nuts. And BYU's actually won 3 games in which it's had sub 300 yards. This is not your typical BYU. This is the Big 12 era of just win the game, and BYU's figuring it out.
BYU is so sudden in their offense. They're situationally opportunistic.
Obedience.
Like when you make a mistake, BYU, more often than not, is making you pay in a hurry.
Yeah.
Like those touchdowns happen very quickly when you make a big mistake against BYU. And so to the Cougars' credit and Aaron Roderick's credit, when he's given that opportunity and that advantage, they make opponents pay. And that's how you get it done and are outgained. And it's not close that way. I mean, so, yeah, like Cincinnati can move the ball all they want from 20-20, which has kind of been the story of their season. They've been bad in the red zone.
They stink in the red zone. Holy mackerel. They were technically 2 for 2, but only got 6 points.
Brutal.
Like, you give up 2
You got to score more touchdowns when you get into the reds, right?
Great.
So BYU took advantage. They're situationally opportunistic, and just the big plays happen so fast. How do you have two passing yards, and you're 1 for 7 if you're Keaton Slovis with under a minute to play in the first half, and then bang, 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 Darius Lassiter catches a touchdown pass, and you're up 14-10 at halftime? I thought BYU stole a halftime lead.
It's hard enough to travel to time zones, to play on a short week, to play at elevation, all of these things, to play BYU at night, 26-3 now, 6 or later since 2019. That's a weird stat. But like you said, Keaton Slovis was 1 of 7, 2 passing yards, with 44 seconds left in the first half. BYU gets the ball, and I'm thinking, do not turn it over. Like, we do not need to go crazy here. Just get into the locker room. We are lucky to be this close.
Oh, no.
And no, it's 23 yards, I think, to Keanu Hill, 24 yards to Chase Roberts. PI, but Isaac Rex draws, and then Darius Lassiter, 22 yards. Boom, BYU has the lead, and it was like, what just happened? Like, BYU woke up in an amazing way. Then, in the second half, BYU answered any Cincinnati score, except for the last one. You're just trying to salt it out there, right? You didn't need to. But you answer the scores. And then Chase Roberts was so good in this game. Career high 131, 6 catches, the 59-yarder is awesome. He had a great game. In fact, here's Keaton Slovis talking about Mr. Chase Roberts. We'll get it in a minute. Keaton Slovis, amazing, by the way. He's doing amazing things on very minimal completions. So I would argue, and tell me if you disagree, that the 2 biggest wins are clearly Arkansas and Cincinnati this year, right? Of the 4,
of course.
First 2, clearly,
yes,
right?
Yes.
In those games, he has 13 completions exactly, 2 touchdowns, no picks, sub 250 yards. How is BYU winning with those numbers? Like, typically, I would say BYU probably lost if that's all they did on offense. But, and minimal run game, it's good defense, it's good special teams, and BYU is a complete team in many ways.
Captain efficiency.
Captain efficiency, yeah. Here's Keaton Slovis on Chase Roberts.
Just be more consistent as a whole. I think there are times as pass pro, times for me where I'm not, seeing the field as well as I should. Times receivers, we got to see better as a team. Like, I look at the first half, I got to do a lot of things better. And if we fire on all cylinders more consistently, we'll have a lot of success as an offense.
All right, so he's talking about the offense.
Chase Roberts,
talking about the offense improving during the bye week.
Now, BYU's 4-1 in spite of not completing a gajillion passes or running efficiently. Hey, they completed a lot against Kansas. They were playing from behind, and there was no run game, so that's what you had to do. But I am impressed that despite only 13 completions in the 2 biggest wins, BYU has won those games. Again, the formula, the business model, if you will, for BYU football is not the same as a Power 5 team. These are tougher games that you just have to win. And it takes complementary football, and BYU is doing it. And oh, by the way, the defense is really good.
Yes.
They continue to take the ball away. Jacob Robinson's 7th career pick, by the way. Pick 6. That dude is a baller. Like Ryan Rico, you remember that punt he had in the end zone that went all the way? It was a 66-yarder. In the air, it was 76 yards. In the air!
Amazing.
He is so good. And BYU is getting it done in sort of unorthodox ways. And they're 4-1, and I love it because guess what? October is going to be really tough. Really tough. But the fact that BYU's jumped up to 4-1, amazing.
Yeah, so I heard this over the weekend because I was talking with some people about BYU's defense. But they gave up 38 to Kansas. No, they didn't. The defense did not give up 38 points to Kansas. The defense was not responsible for 2 defensive touchdowns.
No, and one of those field goals off a short field, I would argue it was 21 points allowed.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I said. Yeah. They gave up more like 21 points. And even then, Jay Hill and his defenders were like, we were not good today. We gave up too many rush yards. You gave up 21 points against Kansas, okay? 17 points off of some bad turnovers by BYU, for sure. Yeah, they're really, really good. And Jacob Robinson, man, he takes a calculated risk, and boy, does it pay off.
Oh, so he he said in the postgame he was supposed to pass that guy off. Instead, he just sort of like stopped and watched the ball and just picked it off. Same thing with the Chase Roberts play. That is intended for Keanu Hill. Keaton Slovis told you as much.
Yes.
And so Chase just is there and makes play. Otherwise, it's intercepted. That would have been a big play in the game, but sometimes you get that. And then Chase Roberts just runs to the end zone. Like, I wouldn't say he was galloping, like he wasn't burning anybody, but he was faster than they were.
Yes.
And that's all that matters.
He knew he had an angle.
At what point do we credit the BYU receivers for being fast? I saw one particular media member, who I'm not going to name, said, oh, Cincinnati's DB is so slow. Why aren't you crediting the BYU receiver with running fast? Is it because he's white? Like, I'm bothered by that. I really am. Like, who cares? He outran the defense. What is that? What is that?
Jarom, something very, very important happened as we watched this amazing Chase Roberts.
He just runs to the end zone. That's all I saw.
One, we need to give credit to Keaton Slovis for avoiding the rush. Whoop. Okay, so he does a great job to avoid the rush. Then he takes a shot to the face, and
which wasn't called.
Bloodied on the crown of his nose, and he's like, "That should have been a penalty." So I was mad about that.
Hands to the face.
And he's like, "Yeah, I overthrew Keanu," but he's like, as soon as Chase saw me scramble, his job is to kind of come back the direction he did, and so he's like, sometimes things just work out. Last week against, or sorry to say, weekend a couple of days ago against Kansas, it didn't work out for BYU. So sometimes they don't go your way.
And that's
that
where,
one went his way.
That's where you can't say, oh, BYU is this close to being 5-0. No. Sometimes the ball does not bounce your way, like Kansas. Also, BYU is not good enough to be 5-0 to me. Like BYU at 4-1 is like ahead of schedule. To me, BYU is 3.5 to 1.5, if you will, if I had to break it down. I am happy BYU is 4-1, but BYU certainly you feel like, oh, they could be 5-0. It's like they could have lost the Arkansas game. They could have lost the Cincinnati game. They didn't. They're not 2-3. They are 4-1, and things are awesome. October's going to be significantly harder. I hope BYU wins one game in October at this point.
So
those are tough games, even though TCU lost to West Virginia. Texas Tech looks better than we thought after the Tyler Shuck injury, and then Texas is looking awesome right now.
That touchdown pass happens because BYU's aggressive. And there was a definitive moment in the game where Aaron Roderick just said, you know what? We're just going to have to let Keaton throw it down the field because it clearly was not working in the first half.
Every game it feels like now.
So now it's like, all right, let him drop back and rip it down the field. That is what Keaton Slovis does. There was a decision made right before halftime, like let him throw the ball down the field.
With 44 seconds left inside your own wherever it started, it was the 18 because they had 82 yards on that drive. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That is a heck of a time to make that decision.
Try it, and we're going to find out. And it paid off in a major way, and it has in multiple scenarios for BYU this season.
Yeah.
The same logic can be applied to a guy we're just about to talk about, Zach Wilson, his offensive coordinator. What did I say last week to you?
Yeah.
Just let him have a chance to throw the ball down the field.
Topic 2. I did not think that the Jets would allow that. They did, and it was awesome. So who had a bigger day yesterday, Zach Wilson or Puka Nacua?
It's hard to argue against Puka Nacua because he's the header of the NFL's main accounts on social media.
That smile is contagious, man. It's awesome.
But I would argue that the more important day, meaning bigger for your status in the NFL and your career moving forward, like Zach Wilson did more for his career in one game than he maybe has done his entire NFL career.
Amen.
He literally changed the narrative in one game about who he is and what he can do and if he actually has what it takes to make it in the NFL.
And in a loss
against the Kansas City Chiefs with Taylor Swift in the house in New York City on Sunday Night Football. It wasn't just Taylor Swift. It was Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively. Taylor Swift the same suite. Became like a secondary story because of what was happening on the field.
Zach Wilson was trending #1 in the United States.
So I would say that he had the bigger day because I feel like he saved his NFL career, at least for a little bit.
At least for a couple more weeks.
Showing what he can do.
Yeah.
And Nathaniel Hackett, to his credit, his offensive coordinator finally was like, all right, Zach, I'm going to give you an opportunity to really make some tough throws. We're gonna try and stretch a defense. Let's see what you can do.
He
did it.
Chris Collinsworth was over the moon. He was, this Zach Wilson.
I loved it.
It was great.
I loved it.
When is Zach the best? When he can just rip it.
Just play.
And he can be a little reckless, and he can hold on to the ball for a minute and run and make the defense, get on their toes a little bit. He was doing his thing last night against a good defense, and it was fun to watch. A couple of numbers that stick out. 28 completions, career high. Nearly 72% completion rate. That was a career high, minimum 30 attempts. It's its first 2-pass touchdown game without a pick.
No interceptions.
He had never done that.
Yep.
And it's the 6th multi-TD game of his career passing.
He outplays Patrick Mahomes.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what?
That is the stat of stats. Where is that one again? Like no one. Okay, he's the only quarterback ever to have fewer interceptions, more completions, passing yards, TD passes in a game against Patrick Mahomes in college or the NFL when Mahomes starts. That is unbelievable from Bleacher Report. Puka, let's talk about what he did, because, yes, it was amazing, but Zach's sort of need to have it. If you don't, you might not be the guy soon. Like, he had to have it.
He's the dude now.
He's the dude, for sure. Puka Nacua, 9 grabs, 10 targets, 163 yards. His first touchdown is in overtime, and it beats Blake Freeland and the Colts, which is pretty gnarly.
9 catches on 10 targets. I'm sorry.
18 a catch.
Like, it's so ridiculous.
Yes, I have Puka and that performance as tied for the 3rd most yards by any receiver from BYU in the NFL ever. Austin Collie had 163 and 171. Todd Christensen had 173. By the way, the top 10 is like 6 Todd Christensen. He was amazing.
All pro.
Rest in peace. He was awesome. What a day for those two in particular. Kyle Van Noy gets called up to the 53, by the way, from the practice squad. Of course he does. He's
my favorite thing that happened last night for Zach didn't have anything to do with what happened in the game. It was what Patrick Mahomes said twice.
We would play that if he didn't drop a bomb.
In his post-game interview.
Yeah.
So first of all, he's asked a question about the game in general, and he goes without being prompted to Zach Wilson played a heck of a game, played his butt off, didn't say that, and he apologized for cursing.
It's in the Bible.
And then they followed up at the end with another question, and he said, I've liked Zach ever since I've been watching him since his BYU days. It was good to see him go out and do his thing. That was like the ultimate validation.
Chris Jones did that on the postgame as well, despite being, sort of. Rodney Harrison tried to get Chris Jones to say something bad about Zach. He did not bite. That was great. He did more for his career in that single game than any other game in his career, including BYU.
In that spotlight with that much pressure.
What a performance! Yes, Steve Young told us a week and a half ago, I would not like to be in that position. And that's a guy who was coming in for Joe Montana.
Steve's a guy that understands anxiety and pressure.
He would literally know anxiety. Like in his book, he talks about that's hard, man.
That was unbelievable. So happy for Zach.
Awesome.
And this is all while he's just bummed beyond belief because he fumbles late.
He's the only one not excited about his performance.
I ruined the game.
I lost the game.
Oh.
That kind of ownership is the opposite of what was happening at the end of last year, by the way, with Zach.
Yeah.
Where he said some things that really ticked some people off. Zach is maturing. You're seeing it happen before.
Maturing on and off the field. Bought his entire team ice cream earlier this week. So
it's a very BYU thing to do.
Keep doing it, bro.
To give people
buy your guys ice cream. There's nothing that speaks quite to the heart like buying ice cream for somebody.